Soeren here, and welcome to my channel. For this lesson, this lesson is about how to become a melodic player. To me, when I hear a new guitarist on YouTube, so I have never heard about him before, the first thing I notice is the sound on the guitar, and the second thing is whether there's a certain melodic flow or whether it's without musical flow at all. And I think these two things are the most important things for me as a guitarist. It's the sound and the melodic flow. And in this lesson I will talk about how you can become a more melodic player. What can you do in order to become a more melodic player? And one of the first things I would say is that if you really want to be melodic, you should listen to melodic players. And in blues music, that could be players as Robben Ford is a very melodic guitarist. He plays beautiful lines, and B.B. King is a great melodic player. He's really a player that, you can hear it's maybe not very sophisticated scales that he uses and so, but he's always very melodic, and it's a pleasure to hear. And Otis Rush is also it's about the same genre, and Mike Bloomfield. That were a few guitarists that comes to my mind. Of course, there's a lot of other guitarists, but these guitarists are Robben Ford and B.B. King and also Mike Bloomfield. They are all very, very melodic players, and it's a good idea to listen to melodic players, because if you listen enough, suddenly you start to play some of these melodic phrases yourself. That is my experience. So the first thing is to listen to melodic players. And it doesn't have to be just inside in blues music. It could be, if you take jazz, there's so many beautiful songs. Just currently I work on God Bless the Child, if you know that one, beautiful ballad, and I work on When Sunny Gets Blue. That was an album. These two ballads I'm playing on just currently, and it's such a pleasure to play because they're very melodic. And there are so many great songs, in old songs like My Foolish Heart, Round About Midnight, and you name it. So playing or listening, at this point we talk about listening to great songs, jazz songs as well. And if you take the folk rock, there's a guy like, or Latin, there's a guy like Carlos Santana, who is really very, he's always very melodic. And he's a great player to listen to if you want to get inspired to make melodic music. He's a great player. And if you take the folk genre, you have if I go back to the 70s, you have Simon and Garfunkel, always great songs, really great songs. And you have Neil Young, who is still playing also great songs, and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. There were so many great songwriters back in the 70s, where the song really was king. And by listening to them, you will get more melodic yourself. And the last genre that I have been playing a lot of classical music as I was a kid. From I was about 12, 13 until I was 20, I played a lot of classical flute and classical piano, and I played Beethoven and Mozart. And so Mozart is king of the melody. It's such great, he's so melodic, and Bach is also. So listening to classical music can also help you to be more melodic, because it has to come from somewhere. you don't just you are not just melodic without listening to melodic players. That would not work. So the first point is to listen to melodic guitarist or melodic music. It could be music on piano or whatever, or the violin. It's just listening to melodic music in general. Okay, my second advice is to that you start to play, to use the major pentatonic scale and not the minor pentatonic scale all the time, so that you also learn how to use the major pentatonic scale. It's a very melodic scale. You can really hear that just by playing the scale how melodic it is. So you get a new dimension into your blues playing when you start using this one. And you can start as a start. You can use it just down in this one position. So that's using it just in this first position of it, or the when you have a major pentatonic scale in A, you start down here, and then when you have learned to use the one form of the major pentatonic scale, you will realize that it's a little more difficult to find the right notes as when you are in the minor pentatonic scale. The major pentatonic scale, you really have to use your ear to find the right notes, but it's possible to play through all three chords of a three-chord blues using just the first form of the major pentatonic scale. You just have to find the right notes. But what I think is interesting here, if you want to be a melodic player, is that you learn to change with the chords. So when you play A, one of these dominant 7 chords, A7, then you play the A major pentatonic scale. When you then go and you play a D9 here, then you play a D, and when you play E, you play an E major pentatonic scale. You can hear the melodic possibilities in this, and then if you can't do that, you will start to listen to sound a little more melodic, or a lot more melodic. And instead of just moving here, you can learn to play the three forms of the A major pentatonic scale in this area of the fretboard. So and then when you play D, instead of going up here, you play the D down here. Here that's notes from the D. You can hear it's the same notes as here. And the same thing when I play the E. I want to play this area, so the E, instead of playing it up here, I play it here. Okay, I think that's really, if you can integrate this into your blues playing, that you mix your blues playing with a minor pentatonic scale, major pentatonic scale, and you learn to move, to play actually in this area, the A major pentatonic scale, the D major pentatonic scale, and the E, then you're already are on your way, stepping stones to how to become a melodic guitarist. It's really very, very helpful stepping stones. So you have to find your own licks. I mean, it's not that interesting if you just play the scales. But you have to learn the scales at first, and then you can make licks out of the scales and find the right notes what sound good. And so you find the notes in the scales that sound good. And so that is my second recommendation, is to learn to use the majorpentatonic scale in your playing. Okay, the third thing that I would recommend that you learn is about that you learn the modes and how to use them. Apart from being great scales that you can use in blues and jazz music, it's also, I think to me it was like the first time I started really to know what music was about, what was how jazz and blues music was built. I really started to understand a lot of theory, and I started to learn a lot of things about music by learning about the modes. So first of all, there are great scales like the Ionian major. You have to know that one. You have to know, as a blues guitarist, especially the Mixolydian scale is really important, and the Mixolydian major. And if you play more minor kind of blues, it would be more the Aeolian minor or the Dorian minor. These scales are really great to use as a supplement to the pentatonic scales. And if you want to become melodic, it's obvious. If you play these 7-note scales, you get even more melodic as when you play the major pentatonic scale. It's really, I think that you have these great scales, and apart from that, if your progression is the same as to me, I started really to learn about music. How is music built? How are the scales built? And what is the scale chord relationship? I learned a lot about this. You also learn about building triads, for instance, using the Ionian scale, and then building triads up the things like that. And it could also be 4-note chords or arpeggios that you build on a certain scale. Now I use the Ionian. I could use the Mixolydian or the Dorian minor to build up these triads or arpeggios. And as said already 3 times, I think there's no other thing that I learned in music that I learned so much about how music is built than as I started to learn about the modes. And there are so many great lessons on the internet, on YouTube about the modes. So you can just go there and look for information. I haven't made a video about it yet, but I really recommend that you learn about that if you are a little bit serious about music, because suddenly you understand a lot of things. And using, at least you should learn to use the Mixolydian major, because that's really obvious that you can use that all the time when you play these dominant chords that you play in the blues. But also if you play more minor kind of blues, the Dorian minor and the Aeolian minor are great to know. And it's absolutely, you actually have to know these scales if you are a little serious about it. So, okay, the last thing I will recommend that you learn if you are a little serious about playing music is that you learn how the chords are built. And the first thing you want to know if you hear a chord, is it a major chord or is it a minor chord? So that you should really be able to hear that. And the second thing is whether it's a major 7 type chord or is it dominant 7. So is it a C major 7 or is it a C7? that's the next thing, and it's really important to, for instance, or most blues songs are with a dominant 7, so there's a C7, C9, etc. But if you have a blues song like "Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying," it's actually based on these major 7 chords. So they also occur in blues songs. So if you have learned that, you should also find out why is it called a 9 and why is it called 11 and a 13th chord. And I can show you very briefly. If you have the C major scale, you always use the C Ionian major for analysis. So I play up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then I go up 1 note again in the scale. So obviously that must be a 9 in a C. It's a D. So that's the 9 tone in a C major scale. So this is a 9 chord because of that, because you have the 9 up in the top here. And again, if you want to have an 11, you build them by going 4 notes up. You have the 8th. If you have the major scale like this is the 8th, 9th, 10th, and the 11th here. If I build this scale where I have this note, that's actually called a C11. And we could take the 13th, that's built on the 6th interval, so we can try to play up from 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. I just play up in the C scale, so this is the 13th up here. That's why this one is called a C13th. So you will learn so much about scale chord relation and chord building by learning the modes and learning how chords are built. So I can really recommend that you go into that if you are a little serious about music. And it's fun to sit and learn new things. So I had to learn these things because I started to teach as I was, or it was back in 1986 that I started to teach, because I had a guitar shop and I didn't sell enough guitars. So I had to have private students, and I had to know these things. So I just started to try to find out things, and it took me more years to really understand. But as I remember, the modes were really important to learn. So I really recommend that you learn the modes. And as a last thing, also this about how chords are built. So the 4 advices is: listen to melodic players, learn to use the major pentatonic scale and try to play through the chords. You move it so you play through the chords, or you play through the chords in the same area instead of moving actually. But try to start to use the major pentatonic scale. That's the second thing. The third thing, learn the modes, learn how to use them and understand how important they are. And the fourth thing is learn how to analyze the chords, how to build chords. Okay, have a lot of fun as usual.